Chairman of Ovation Media Group, Dele Momodu, speaks on the success of his celebrity magazine in a recent Public Eye Live interview with Fumi Yonda. According to the celebrity publisher, building contact and trust are two key elements in a media career. He also spoke about how he got women hooked on his publication.
I remember the first time I heard your name. I think I heard your name in connection to May Ellen Ezekiel. I was possibly a teenager. I just came out of university at that time, and you were this larger than life. You still are, person whom everybody was talking about then. Then, of course, there was Concord, and the whole of the Abiola. So you've traversed the media, and from print to electronic to social media, one form or the other. The media has changed not just in Nigeria but globally. Technology has changed media. It doesn't, and there's a lot of struggling to be able to make media viable. That's on one hand as a business. Then, of course, because you also understand politics, you know the role of media as a pillar of democracy. These two, can they ever really converge? The role of the media as a pillar of democracy and the role of media as a business that's supposed to make profit.
You see, it's a very technical question, very, very technical. Yes, they can meet. What we've succeeded in doing at Ovation was to know that there is no sentiment and there is no emotion about business. And that we needed to treat Ovation as a business. Most of those who went into media in the past, that's why they almost nearly collapsed. Well, most of them collapsed once the media owners collapsed. If you look at Concord newspapers, Concord would probably be alive today if it was strictly a business and it was not synonymous with the owner as a politician. If you look at the Tribune, Tribune is probably the only one that has survived from that generation. Chief Obafemi Awolowo owned the Tribune, but the Awolowos were very good at running it as a business. Till today, even after Mama left, that's Chief Mrs. H.I.D. Awolowo, she transferred to her children. So the first chairman, you understand, came, Mrs. Oyediro. Now I think we have Dr. Tokunbo Awolowo Dosunmu in charge. So they've been able to survive from generation to generation. But if you look at another example in Nigeria, the Champion newspapers owned by Chief Emmanuel Nwanyawu. Chief Nwanyawu is still alive, but the Champion has had to struggle because Chief Nwanyawu, I think, went so much into politics. And of course, the media is a casino. If you are not a big-time gambler and you are able to generate resources from different investments, you are not likely to survive. A lot of people came, they wanted to do Ovation. The reason they didn't survive was not because they were not brilliant enough, was not because of a dearth of good stories or good events, but because they didn't realize that there were secrets to it. There's always a method to madness in a place like Nigeria. You must understand your terrain very well. So they thought Ovation was just making like that easily. No. But what we did was to diversify, unknown to people, maybe secretly, into different things. For example, one of my biggest income earner is public relations, PR. From day one, we decided that Ovation would never attack people. We wanted a magazine, a lifestyle magazine that will mirror the lifestyle of the rich and famous. There were not many celebrities when we started. We had to create our own. We looked at, Hello magazine, looked at OK, look at Tatler and the rest of them in Europe. And we realized that, hey, in those places, they pay celebrities to feature in their magazines. We had to do the opposite. Because we didn't have a preponderance of celebrities in Africa. We only had footballers, a few movie stars. If you like, combine Genevieve with Omotola, with everybody and put them on your cover. You will never break even in Nigeria. You understand? Whereas if you were to put a David Beckham on the cover of a magazine in London, you can sell 2 million copies.
Yeah, isn't that really because we can't sell? Is that not because of the distribution challenge? Because
no, that's not it.
People are
no, we don't have reading culture. That's the first thing. We don't have a reading culture. You will see that if you go on the tube or on any surface train in England, you will find everybody holding one thing or the other, either a book or a magazine or a newspaper to read. We don't have that culture. Yes, I agree with you that the distribution network here is also very clumsy, but that's not it. If you have the reading culture, people will find it and they will buy. So for us at Ovation, we now had to do something. One, get people addicted. When we started, we used to beg people to let us into their events. In fact, some places they would not even let us in. We don't. In the north, they used to tell us that you cannot photograph a woman in their homes. So what did we do? We found a female photographer. So the female photographer, of course, is able to penetrate those homes, and then people started seeing the beauty. And we were able to get people hooked on it. You have to get your product to a level where people are addicted. When people are addicted to any product, they are ready to pay a premium on it.
Right.
That is what has sustained us today. If you do a big event and Ovation did not cover it, then you've wasted your money. Because the essence is what lifestyle magazines sell is what they call vanity. The reason why do you think Instagram is popular today is because of photography. That is why I want to thank you for that description that Ovation was Instagram before Instagram. You're absolutely right. People are never tired of photographs. People can be tired of reading. If somebody tells you now that Funmi Nyoda, oh, I saw you on the cover of Tribune. Maybe you have not read Tribune in a long time. You will find that copy of Tribune by fire, by force. So that is what, and because Ovation became big, we started building and bringing out our icons. Look at a magazine that featured a Chief Fernandez, a Chief Adenuga, you understand, a Chief Abiola. So it became aspirational. There was a woman who called me once. I didn't know her from anywhere. She said, please, my daughter is getting married, and I promised 10 years ago that whenever my daughter is getting married, there are 2 things I must do. One of them is that our wedding must be featured in Ovation, and Alhaji Agba, Sikiru Ayinde Barrister, must perform. Even if he will be on a wheelchair, he must come and perform. You know, so it has become something that people save towards it. People want to be in the magazine because, you know, once you appear in it, you have made it.
Now, Bob Dean, I want to bring this. I'm going to come back to Ovation itself and the structure and all of that and the media itself, but I want to take it to COVID in particular. You were one of the first. I don't know if you were the first, but I think you were one of the first. Not only are you one of the first, you are the most prolific liver. You know, you are the most prolific in use of lives. You are there almost every day. You have long live sessions. I mean, when COVID hits, nobody knew what to do. You seem to almost immediately know what to do. Abi,
no, you see, that's why I said, if you come from an academic background, it enables you to do research. People sometimes, when I tell my friends some things that will happen, and it sounds so prophetic, they're always wondering, boy, Sean Tiffany, are you consulting the oracle or not? It's just the power of the brain. You see, your imagination can take you far. What happened was that I was not the first to do Instagram Live during COVID. Instagram Live had been there.
In Nigeria,
I was not the first. Instagram Live had been there, but people were using it mainly for entertainment. So that's why you didn't notice. People were using it. It was only for artists. Okay, let's talk to an artist, Majek Fashek. Let's bring King Sonny. That was how it started. So what happened to me, you won't believe it, that a few young people galvanized me into it, but they did not even know. I think it was Sheung, the commissioner for youth in Ibadan, who's the one they called me, said, oh, he wanted to interview me and all that. And I said, oh, why not interview me? Then I did an interview. Then a lady also from Scotland, Diana Childs, also called me, said she wants to interview me. Then I sat back. I said, come on, all these interviews, but I know more people than these guys. I know presidents, I know vice president, I know everybody. And then that was it. I just called Dr. Kayode Fayemi. I said, please, I'm starting something and I want you to be the first. Why did I call him? He's the chairman, Governors Forum. If he agrees, so who else will say no to me? You understand? So I called him and I said, Bob Dia, anything for you now. How can I say no? And that was how I started with him. I called Peter Obi. Peter Obi agreed. I called the vice president of Liberia. She agreed. I said, you are the new sinker. That was it. And you will not believe it. Once I call people, because the key word in journalism is integrity. Yeah. Once people can trust you with their lives, you will succeed as a journalist. But if people have doubts about you, if they think you are out to destroy their lives, if they think you are out to let out their secrets, nobody will touch you.
Yeah.
So
I subscribe to that.
When I called you, you said, Bob D, I won't do this interview normally, but how do I look at you and say no? And you agreed. Yeah. So you were part of that success story of me migrating from hardcore now to social media. Now, this is like running a television station in your own home.
Yeah.
From here, I interviewed one of my greatest idols, Professor Wande Abimbola, all the way in America.
Mm-hmm.
We spoke for 3.5 hours. That is probably my longest interview. After the one we did for the former president of Ghana, Jerry John Rawlings.
Mm-hmm.
We did a 5-day interview with him spanning 18 hours. You will not believe it.
Yeah.
But for one stretch interview, 3.5 hours, I was speaking to Professor Wande Abimbola. So that's how it started. And for me, my ideas just come. I can be very spontaneous. I think at the speed of light. Some people, they will be dragging, they can't make up their me. Once I see a window of opportunity, trust me, even if it is half open, I will go in.
So, I mean, in your career, a lot of younger people may not know this because they were not there and we don't keep great records. But you are at times when it mattered, you have spoken to people who people thought were inaccessible, and you have had audiences with some of the most powerful people in the world, including the Queen of England. I remember President Bill Clinton at the time. Everyone. There was a time you were one of the first to move to Ghana to set up a home in Ghana, became quite close to the presidents of Ghana. You spoke now about Jerry Rawlings, who, is kind of like the godfather of modern Ghana. So that's a lot of access. Why do you think you've already alluded to that people trust you, but how did you gain trust to start with? Because it must have started from somewhere.
Well, as I said, sorry, I put off my AC so that I could hear you well, so I have to. Yes, you see, what happened to me is that I always say it. In whatever you want to do, there is a process. The process of gaining access to people is via preparation. You must prepare. When you prepare, then you will be ready to take on the world. I was very fortunate as a young man. I started life early. I graduated at the age of 22. By the age of 23, I was already a private secretary to the then deputy governor of Ondo State when Ondo was a combination of Ondo and Ekiti states. Mm-hmm. Thereafter, I worked for Oba Okunadeshijade Lubushe II, the Oni of Ife. Mm-hmm. After that, I went back for my master's. Then I started my first job in Lagos in 1988 was with Concord Newspapers owned by Chief Abiola. So if you look at the cumulative experience that I gathered from age 23 to age 28, you'll be looking at about 5 years of meeting different people. By the time I was 22, I already knew most of the big men in NPN, the National Party of Nigeria, the ruling party under President Shagari. The Akinjides, the Akiloyes, the Oluloyos, the Bolaiges, I was already meeting and interacting with. So I didn't know that journey was preparing me for journalism. You understand? So because without access, even if people trust you, first you must have built that access. So if, for example, I've been coming to your house over time, and one day I say I want to interview you, then it becomes you'll be relaxed with me because you're already familiar. So I had familiarity with a lot of these guys. That's point number one. The next thing was that the big men also, they are watching their contemporaries. So if you see an Otumba Shubomi Balogun on the cover of a magazine celebrating his 80th birthday, maybe you are around 78 at that time. So you are also hoping that by the time your own comes, because people are going to say you are a poor man. If your story is not innovation, it means that you are not ready. You go and put it in one Jekuredu magazine. People are going, so life is about competition. The rich men also compete. The rich women in particular, they love photography more than the men. And my strategy is that most times when there is a wedding, I don't talk to the groom. Sometimes the grooms don't want their girlfriends to know they are getting married. So I target the bride. I'm giving you serious strategy. When the brides call me, they say, it's expensive. Oh, I say, madam, use your money wisely. Do you know your husband might still have some ambitious girlfriends? So you have to put your stamp, your signature on him by putting the wedding innovation. It's free.